This is a brief introduction to Power BI Desktop. What is Power BI? Is Power BI equal to Power BI Desktop? When we speak about Power BI Desktop is not the only thing we could mean. So if you really want to talk about Power BI Desktop, you should say Power BI Desktop, because Power BI is a collection of different tools. Power BI consists of Power BI Desktop, which is meant to create reports, to style reports, to import your data, to work with the data. And then when you share your report, you share this. This is the Microsoft idea with Power BI Online, which is meant to consume your data. You can also consume your data, your reports on Power BI Mobile. And on the Windows app, which is for your PC, but it's just a consuming app. Now, while Power BI Desktop is a free software that you can download from Microsoft, you don't need any license fees or anything for this. Power BI Online, the sharing part, is something where you need a license, a pro license, to share this with your colleagues. Power BI Desktop is only available for Windows, and you can use it to get data from different sources. You can use it to transform data, clean data, combine data. There's a lot of ETL things you can do with your data. You can create data models in there, so you can create relations between different tables. You can calculate columns, measures. You can calculate even tables. There's a lot you can do in the data model itself. Then you want to visualize all your pivot tables, all your visuals. You want to filter them with slices or with an extra filter pane. You can also put some headers over it. You can use some background pictures. You can use buttons to navigate in your report. A lot of different possibilities. When you work with Power BI Desktop, you might need more help. You might want to look up some information. There's tons of information out there on the net. But starting with Power BI Desktop, you can find a lot of information in the Help tab and the ribbon. You find a lot of guided learning, training videos, free training videos from Microsoft. There's quite a lot. There's a documentation where all the functions are in there. There is a Power BI blog telling you about all the new functions. Every month, more or less, there is an update from Power BI, and the Power BI development is quite active, so you get a new version every month with a lot of different new features, and the Power BI blog will tell you about it. There is a big Power BI community where you can ask questions if you have problems with Power BI, and there are always people ready to help you. Now let's have a look at the Power BI Desktop user interface. The user interface contains of different parts. Well, it has a ribbon with different tabs in there, like you have in all the Office apps. And then on the left side, you have three little icons. There you change between different views. You have the report view. This is where you create all your visuals. You have a data view. You can use this to explore the data. In the data view, you see your tables and the data in there. You can filter the data and also work with the data. So this is really to explore the data that has been loaded into the data model. And then there is a third one, which is the model view. If you have the relationships between your tables, if you want to create relationships between your tables, or you just want to see what are the different tables in your data model, a good starting point is to see the model view. But this is not all. These are not all the parts of the user interface. There's a very important other part, which is Power Query. Power Query is in the home ribbon. There is a button to transform data. When you want to do any transformations on your data, clean your data, combine it with other data, you can do this in Power Query. And with this button, you get to the Power Query editor. Now it's July 2023. Power BI was changed. Microsoft came out with a new user interface, or with changes in the user interface. This is what it looks like in the old days. So when you click on a visual and then you look to the right side, you have the visualization pane. You've got here the filter pane, which is collapsed. You've got the data pane where you can see all your tables, and in the tables you see the different columns. In Power BI we call them fields. So we have the tables and the fields, or you can also call them columns. And here we've got all the visuals we can create, and underneath all these visuals we see the areas of the visual that we have selected, where we can place the fields so that they are shown in the visual. And this has changed, but it's still in the preview. So as I said, right now is July 2023, so this is still a preview feature, but I think it's a really cool one. So I suggest you to turn this preview feature on. I will show you how. And then it looks different. When you click on a visual, you have these on-object interactions. That's how Microsoft calls them. So this visualizations pane is no more here on the right side, but it's directly at the visual. And that's not all of it. The best is that now you have a suggestion. By default, you just, if you want to show certain fields in a report, you just click on a field in the report, and then Power BI will, depending on what field you choose, if there are number fields or text fields or date fields, will suggest you a visual that fits best, and will just place the fields somewhere in this visual where Power BI thinks this is good. And you can change this here, but this is a really cool feature. It makes creating visuals so much easier than before. So that's why you should also turn this feature on, and I will show you how to do this. So when you start Power BI Desktop, I'm in a new blank Power BI Desktop file here. I want to turn this on. So I go to File, I go to Options and Settings, Options, and in Options I go to Preview Features. There are a lot of different preview features. If you want to know what's behind this, click on Learn More, and then you get to the blog. The feature I want to show you is this one. It's called On-Object Interaction. This is what you need to turn on to get this new user interface. So it's On-Object Interaction. When you turn this on and click OK, Microsoft Power BI will tell you that you need to restart. So you just stop Power BI and then start it again. I did this already, so I don't need to restart. Also, something new is I get with this change here on the right side, I have the so-called pane switcher. So here I can change between the data pane, the format pane, the selection pane, and others, which I can choose here on this little plus button. I can choose which panes I want to see here on the side. So I could turn on the bookmarks also, or on the string slices, and I see them all here. I can also turn them back off if I don't need them for now. There's one, build a visual. This is the one we see only when we have a visual selected. So right now I can't see it. I can't create a visual because I don't have any data yet. So I want to get some data, and therefore I use the sample data set. So try the sample data is what I use for this. And here I just click on load sample data, and this will load data from an Excel file that has been installed together with Power BI when you install this software. We get a sheet because it's an Excel file. Excel has sheets. And in this sheet, the data is formatted as a table. In Excel, there's a function to format data as a table. That happened here. And that's why we also have a table in here that has the same data. I want to choose this table, so I need to tick this here in front, and then I can choose load. I don't click load, I click transform data first because I want to show you the Power Query editor first. When I click transform, I get to the Power Query editor. It takes a little bit, and Power Query editor has opened in the other window. I need to quickly move this up here. And what you see here is the Power BI Power Query editor. There's another ribbon, completely different one with completely different tools. You can use this to transform your data. I can filter here, and when I filter here, the data is not loaded to the data model, whatever I filter out. And there are loads of other possibilities here. I just close and apply on the home ribbon, so all the data is not transformed but loaded as it is into my data model. Now I am here in the report view, and there's nothing to see because I haven't created any visuals yet. If I look down here, I see I'm on page 1, and there's a plus button to create more pages. Like you know this from Excel, here you can create different pages. The pages are not like a Word page or something I want to print. It's more what I use to place my visuals on. Here it's called a canvas, because the idea is that later on I upload this to Power BI and the Power BI service, Power BI Online. So I can't set a certain size really of this page, but I can format it. If I just click on it and go to my format pane here on the right, I can see here canvas settings, and there I can see it's just a relationship, a ratio, 16:9 ratio. So this is not a real size. It's just yeah, the ratio from the sides. And if you go to the view ribbon, the view tab in the ribbon, you can change how you want to see the page. Do you want to see it fit to your screen, or you want to see it actual size? That's up to you. If you work on a laptop with a small screen, I would also suggest you always to use fit to page, because then you see the whole page. If you have a big screen here like me, then you can choose actual size. You can also choose this down here. You have your formatting where you can also set this here. Now, where's my data? Let's have a look at the data pane here. And there I see one table, it's called financials. And I see a lot of different columns or fields in here. Some of these fields, they have a sum sign here in front. I know this from math, it's a sum. And then I have a little calendar here for the date. the fields, what you see here that have this little sum sign, they are mostly number fields, so they contain numbers. We can see that if you go to the data view and look at this table, we see, well, let's have a look at one of them, sales, for example. There's a lot of numbers in there. And as you can see here, when I'm in the data view and column tools, the summarization, the standard summarization for this field is a sum. Now let's go down here, the field year. Year, I want to use the year to filter my data. So I don't want to sum up the year. So this is wrong. I don't want to sum this up. So standard summarization, I say don't summarize. So the filter icon, the sum icon is gone now. So if I place this in a visual, it will not be summarized. So how do I create visuals now? Let's go back to the home ribbon. There is a button here, new visuals, a lot of visuals up here to choose from. But there's an even much easier way. If you go here to the right where you have all your fields, you just choose the fields you want to see in your visual. I, for example, want to see how many units I sold from my products. So I click units and I click products, and there is my visual already. And Power BI decided that a clustered bar chart would be the best visual to show this. Clustered bar chart, column charts, bar charts, they're usually the best to visualize something, but depending on it, and Power BI will also suggest you different ones. Now here I can see all my products now, and here's the data in there. Oh, cool. And I can move this visual around on my page. I can make it bigger and so that it uses the whole page, or can make it even smaller again. Oh. And I've got this build a visual here, which I can choose to work on it. This in the past, when we didn't turn on the preview, it was here on the right. So some people who work with Power BI before, they preferred here on the right. You can change this. In the View tab, if you go to the Pane Switcher, you can say move Build a Visual to Pane Switcher, and then it's here like it's been in the past. If you then want to see also the data at the same time, you can control click any of the other panes here, and then you get a second pane, so you have them here. And this is like maybe it looked before without the suggestions. Suggestions are completely new. I like the way it is on the left side, so I turn this off, and I prefer to have this here, the new style. So and now I move my visual a bit to the side because I want to create a second visual. Make this a bit smaller. Now I want to have a new visual. If I want to have a new visual, not change this, I need to click somewhere in the empty page. And I want to see maybe my sales. Let's look if I have my sales here. Yes, sales. And the sales over time, sales over time. I've got the date here. Let's see if something happens. I only have the sales selected. I now see the total amount of all of my sales because I haven't filtered them somehow. So now choose the date field. And now I get a line chart which shows me, oh, my sales, they went up from 2013 to 2014. Because I only have the years in here on the axis. But in the data I see date, year, quarter, month, day. Why doesn't the visual show it? Well, the visual does show it. You just need to tell the visual to show it. There are little signs here in the visual. that you can choose to drill down. And if I drill down to the next level, then I'm here in the quarters, year, quarter, month. And if I drill even further down, I'm here in the month. But I could have had this easier. So let's take this out. And I've seen here in my data that the month name's already here. So maybe I just take the month name. Oh, and now Power BI put the month on this axis here and sorted them by the gross sales. So this is, well, it's usually best to sort these bar charts, but this is not what I wanted. So I want to have a different visual. I want to change this visual back to a line chart. How do I get this to a line chart? You need to change this. Well, easiest way would be choose the line chart here, or choose it from the home ribbon up here. So once you have a visual selected and you choose a different chart type, you do not create a new chart when you click here, which you could expect also, but you change your visual. Now with the line chart, I get the month down here in the right order. Okay. When I turn these suggestions off, and then I have the fields, the areas of my visual where I can place data. And a good thing to understand this is to create a matrix visual, which is comparable to a pivot table in Excel. So let's create this, or change this. In a pivot table, you maybe know you have rows and columns and values. So all the numbers you put in the values are summed up by default. You have the columns and you have the rows. So I can now maybe take the year and place the year on the columns. Now I have the years up here, I have the month, and I have my totals. So this is the basic pivot table. And now I can change this back to a visual like a stacked column chart. Now, in the stacked column chart, it doesn't look anymore like what I expected. And I look at the fields, the areas I have in here. I've got an x-axis, a y-axis, and a legend. That's basics. So this is the x-axis. So on the x-axis, I want the month names, but the year, I want the year in the legend. Now, so let's just move it down. So now I've got the month and then the year up here. Maybe this kind of visual is a bit confusing. I don't know. But it shows you the idea of what you can do. So to create a new visual, you just click on the fields you want to have in the visual. And then if you don't like the visual that Power BI suggests you just choose a different one. And then you can move the fields around in these areas to see what happens. Instead of a legend, I could also use the small multiples, and then I get these small little kind of visuals. So each visual has its own areas where you place the fields, and you just move them around, play around to get the visual in the way you want. If you want to format your visual even more, you can click onto the paintbrush, and there you can choose what you want to see in your visual. I do that with this visual. I would like to see the numbers here, and so I choose data labels to standard. So I have data labels now here. If I want to format this even more, I go to more options, and then on the right I have my format pane, and here I can turn on or off a lot of different things. I can turn on or off the title. I can change a lot of things for the title. And what you can change here is also depending a lot on what kind of visual you have. Something that's also new in the new preview feature of the user interface is that there's a lot of elements in this visual that you can now change the way you are used to it from Excel. For example, this title, I don't like the title, I want to change it. I double click onto the title and now I can write in here and change the title. And change it to units sold per product. Right? Super easy. Now let's change this visual to something else. I wanted to have a line chart in the beginning. I was somehow thrown away, so I don't want to have these small ones. Take this out, stick with a month. Now what I can do is, if I have one visual and another visual, I can choose the visuals to filter each other. So let's see, for example, this product Velo. If I click on it, I see this chart filtered only for Velo. If I want to have it filtered for Montana, I click on Montana, it's filtered for Montana. The other way around is also possible. Let's see, I want to see the numbers for June, so I click here on June, and then this here gets not filtered but highlighted. As you can, oh, these were the numbers for June only. And for July, well, it's these, even less. And if I want to take the filter out again, I click it again. So visuals can filter or cross-highlight each other. Now I want to filter my visuals for the year. I've seen that I have 2 years. I only have 1 year. I want to filter this for a year. I don't have the year in any of these visuals, so I get a new visual for it. I get a special slicer visual. So I click on the slicer visual. First I unselect all visuals. I click somewhere on the empty page. I click the slicer visual, and now I want to get the year and the slicer visual. I can click here on add data and then choose it from here, or I can go to the data pane and then drag what I want from here to here. That's what you prefer. Now I have the date in here, but the date, and now I've got this strange little slicer in here, but you can't move this, but because the year, I can't make the year smaller. I could put the date in there. Let's see, the date. Now I have the date, and date, I can move this here and I can make this less or more. But now I have like month also, and that's not what I want. I wanted to filter really by year. So I take this out again and say, okay, I'm sure it's possible with the slicer, but it didn't work the way I wanted it. What's this filter pane here for? This filter pane is also a way you can filter. So you can filter with slices, or you can filter with filters. You can add filters on this page, filters on all pages, or if you click a visual, filter on a visual. I want to add a filter for all filters. I want to filter all visuals on this page. So I take the year and drag it over to this filter area here. Now I can filter here for year. I have to choose advanced filter or basic filter, or there are also other kinds of filter depending on the field. And now I can filter here for a specific year. I can see, okay, what was going on in this year. The slicer is also very handy to filter if I want to filter this maybe by countries. That's easier with the slicer. So let's add a new slicer. I've got this visual selected, so it will not work. It would replace this. I don't want that. I want a new one. So I click on the empty page. I click the slicer and I choose country. Now here country, the slicer works perfectly as I expected. I get this list of countries and now I can choose the country I want. If I want to choose several, I need to hold down the control key. And how do I choose all of them? Well, if I didn't choose any, I choose all. it would actually much easier if I had a select all button. Now you can format this slicer. You go more options. And here on the side, you have the slicer settings. And the first thing is the style. I'll come back to this later. And the second one is the selection. Select, show select all. And also unselect multi-select with control key, because then now you can select several without pressing the control key and you have a select all button. Makes it nicer. So my first try was to use the slicer for the year. So let's try this again. Add data and get the year. Now this is different from this slicer, and it's because I used the year, it's from the date, and their Power BI thinks I want this kind of tool. But I don't want this, I want to change this. So I go back to the formatting. And the formatting is here in the slicer settings, style, between. No, I want the vertical list. There it is. And now I can also filter here. Where's the years? So filtering, we can do filtering with slicers, with the slicer visual, or with this filter pane. If you're only working with Power BI Desktop, it's up to your liking, to your taste. When you upload your Power BI report and share it in the Power BI service online, then it's a bit different, because you can there do a lot more with these filters. You can hide them, you can lock them for report consumers. But here in Power BI Desktop, this has no use. It doesn't do anything. And here slices might be a bit more handy also. Now you saw how to create slicer, how to use the filter. You saw how to create visuals and also how to filter the visuals. Now there's one last thing I want to show you. I go back to this visual here. This visual right now, it shows the sum of gross sales. Sum is the standard aggregation, the standard summarization. But you can click on this little arrow or the data options, and then you see aggregation, and you can choose from sum, average, minimum, maximum, and so on, different ones. So maybe I don't want the sum, maybe I want the average. Now I have the average sales. And now I can do something. I can add data and say, okay, and now I want to see also the sales again, but this time not the sum. I want to see the maximum sales of that month. And also I want to have gross sales again. This time I want to see the minimum sales of this month. Right? And because this average max min of gross sales is a bit long name of a field. I mean, I understand that this is any way of gross sales. So I changed the title, double click it, say gross sales. And then the fields, I can also change the name of the fields inside the visual by clicking on this file, the visual, go to this field, right click the field and rename it for this visual. And this was average. So this is max. And this is min. So you can choose what a field should do. It's the same as you can do in pivot table in Excel. So you can choose the aggregation from a lot of different ones. And you can also change the name just for this visual, so it looks a bit neater. That's it. This should get you going. Have fun.